You may have heard the news about the news, and hey, you know the old saying, no news is good news, and here at Rhema we're all about the good news. However, this isn't necessarily good news for the news, especially if you are in broadcast journalism. Of course, the recent announcement that Newshub will be shutting down. Warner Brothers have pulled the plug. And what does that mean, not just for the news, not just for the different flavours of 6 o'clock nightly bulletin? Oh, no, this one's rubbish. I'll change over to the other one during the ads. We've all been there. We've all done that. That shows, I suppose, I'm a traditional consumer of news media. But what does this mean for the state and health of our democracy? Somebody with an opinion on this and most things, Jason Heale from the Maxim Institute. Jason, kia ora. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, mate. Yeah, I do have an opinion on most things, I think like everyone, so it's a good intro.
Exactly. Although you have better opinions. You have
Oh,
opinions on most things that are worth listening to,
oh, there you
unlike
go.
most people in social media. Just saying. Just saying. Generalisation, I know. However, when it comes to Newshub, TV3 News, and I suppose the online component of that as well, a bit out of the blue, although fair to say that news media generally is struggling. It's not just a New Zealand thing. It's not just a Warner Brothers thing. This is the way things seem to be tracking.
Yeah, that's right. It did seem a bit out of the blue. I watched refreshed the page of the front page of the New Zealand Herald, and it said Newshub people have been called into a meeting, and then 10 minutes later it said Newshub is closing.
Wow.
I had flashbacks to Today FM last year where the same thing happened. Their website just went down, and then later that day they announced that they were shutting down. And you're right, it is a global thing. I think there's lots of journalist outlets in the States, like the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, all those places are laying off journalists as well. So it does seem to be that news media is in a bit of a flux state at the moment. I think changing consumer habits, digital platforms, distrust in news media,
Yeah.
are all playing a part in that sort of thing.
And hey, as a member of the news media, I can understand why the distrust in that regard. Having said that, I think Newshub really tried to say, hey, we're more than just the 6 o'clock news, and really tried to push into that digital space, to have an online presence and a platform, and really did invest into that space. This is, of course, before they got bought out by Bugs Bunny, and it would be fair to say that Warner Brothers' interests are not about fair and balanced journalism and the New Zealand public being informed, and all about, does this make more profit than the other things that we're investing into? The answer is an easy no, and so reasons made for financial rather than journalism reasons.
Yes, and I think this is part of the tension of having a large overseas investment in our local news, things that affect us locally and things that we have a vested interest in, is that for them, I think the number of people watching the 6 p.m. news in the 18 to 34 age range was 47,000 people.
Yeah.
For them, they have shows in their other networks that have more than the population of New Zealand watching them. So
yeah.
It's a no-brainer for them. I saw the interesting thing is I saw an article titled "Did Warner Brothers do all they could to stop closing down Newshub because letting it die is not the Kiwi way?" And I thought, well, Warner Brothers Discovery is not a Kiwi company.
They're not Kiwis. No, so, they don't
care. They exactly. They're not really into doing things the Kiwi way. They're multinational. They care about the most eyeballs on their content that they can get. They care about, like you say, the bottom line. And that's what motivated them.
To be fair, though, yeah. I suppose if Warner Brothers hadn't taken a passing interest in Newshub, it would have been dead a couple of years back, probably.
That's right.
It kind of has been on life support because there isn't the money, there isn't the people that would invest in something like an independent news station here in New Zealand. I mean, you have to look at what's the options. You know, is it okay, we need more state investment into that? Not sure that's the answer. Or do we need some type of elderly Australian benefactor like Rupert Murdoch to come in? I'm sure that will end terribly. Honestly, there doesn't seem to be that many other solutions to this. We can all wring our hands and go, gosh, this isn't terrible. Isn't this terrible? And there's some lovely people that we see on a regular basis that will be losing their jobs. But is this just the way of the dodo when it comes to traditional news media?
I think people's consumer habits have changed for the news. I think you see that in there's quarterly media eyeball kind of reports that come out.
Yeah.
And you see the numbers for particularly for 6 p.m. People have gotten out of that habit now. They have the I can select the content that I want mentality. I can curate my own news feed via social media, or I can curate my own. I mean, pre-programmed TV is really something that hardly anyone watches. I think most people who have a TV, it hasn't been plugged into their digital aerial for years, you know?
Yeah.
They just use it to access the internet to get their Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, and Neon subscriptions, you know?
Yeah.
So,
that is certainly the case. Having said that, though, I mean, there is still news media out there. I suppose my concern is that it will become even more bespoke, as it were, that will have an online news media for every particular type of radicalized view that we can imagine, and we'll all sort of retreat to our ideological corners of YouTube or whatever platform that we're on, pun not intended, and just only take in the type of information that reinforces our prejudices. This isn't good for us as a nation in some ways.
No, and I think the interesting fact is that, or the interesting thought experiment is that this sort of thing has happened already, is that we have imported, because we consume a lot of overseas content on YouTube. I mean, I don't know how many other parents out there listening whose kids have picked up foreign accents from watching YouTube, but my daughter says chance and dance and tomato, and I'm like, what is this, you know? Because the only content that she watches, and she doesn't watch a lot, but the only content is from America, because those are the ones that get pushed on the algorithm or whatever it is. And so we're seeing a lot of foreign content pushed in, and it becomes formative for us. And so we do have that kind of polarized view of the world that is native to American politics, where they have red and blue and they go at each other. Whereas it seems that historically in New Zealand, we've had a lot more kind of dialogue and conversation and consensus. And so there is that danger.
I suppose the other concern is, and hey, monopolies are never good for business unless you are the monopoly. Having one essential TV news outlet, which is government funded, they're just not going to need to work as hard. Honestly, they're not going to need to listen to their viewers as much. Actually, they'll just get the support and the funding that they need. I mean, there's this controversial business as public journalism funding, which has caused a bit of controversy recently. Is that at least part of the answer, though, that in terms of government funding of media, perhaps with less terms and conditions this time round, but at least for the government to recognise that the fourth estate, that good unbiased media is good for the nation, is good for democracy? Is there a case for that, or are those days over and done with, do you think?
I think it's a hard case to make for the government to come in and save a news media company because of the history that we have with public-funded journalism. Like you say, the Public Interest Journalism Fund had so many strings attached that it wasn't. It didn't promote trust. And that's the idea behind the fourth estate, is that it's supposed to scrutinize and provide transparency to the government to ask the hard questions. And it's very hard to ask the hard questions of someone who's paying your rent, you know? So I think as New Zealanders, we kind of realize or recognize that there is a place for independent journalism, and we need to, I think, innovate. We need to push for innovation and go. I mean, New Zealanders are known for their kind of number 8 wire mentality, where we all came here on a shoestring budget, and we've built a unique, beautiful nation. And I think we should push into that in the digital space. Again, I don't know, parents out there will know of Education Perfect is something that most schools use to help their kids learn. That's a New Zealand innovation. That was sold around the world. So we have the capacity, the ability, the skills to innovate. I think we just need to push into it and to encourage that innovation and reward it, instead of hoping that the government is going to step in and save us.
And perhaps we've just got used to being spoon-fed, that we sit down in front of the telly. I mean, I'm old school, but you sit down in front of the telly at 6 o'clock with your dinner on your lap, and the nice presenters tell you what's been happening in the day whilst you've been having fun. Those days are over and done with, but there are still good journalists out there. They are perhaps using different ways of communicating. There's organisations such as yourself that publish good information and good critical analysis of public policy on a regular basis. We might just need to get off our couches and work a little bit harder to stay informed and participate in democracy. But given how lazy I am, Jason, I'm not sure I can be that optimistic.
Well, the great thing is, Andrew, the Edelman Trust Barometer is an international survey that surveys trust, and it showed that New Zealanders are very distrustful of information that we get on social media. And so we're more likely to go and do the research, which is what we need to do, right? So you need to go and, like you say, you need to hear different views, different opinions from different sides. And we are more likely to do that because we actually are high in distrust of information on social media. So we've got a good start, I think, to go and do some work and go, well, hold on a second, this claim is a bit out there. Let me go and follow the evidence and see where that leads.
And hey, the good folk at the Maxim Institute do some of the work for us. But there's also other views out there. Don't swallow it whole necessarily. Do your research on this one. But this conversation on this topic is going to be posted on the Maxim website a little bit later this week, maxim.org.nz. Jason, thank you for what you and the team at Maxim do. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for joining us on Rhema. Now, if you found value in today's content, hit that like button. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing to our channel with the subscribe button. This really helps us to continue to produce more quality content for you. And hey, if you'd like to stay updated and never miss any of our future videos, ring that notification bell as well. Don't forget to follow us on our other socials, which are in the description below. And until then, stay tuned.